Hey everyone, I'm Casey Martin from Wine Country Mica Powder and Wine Country Woodworks, and this is going to be a really fun video making a resin and wood desk. So I'm working in really tight spaces here, so definitely excuse the mess that you guys will probably see around this table, but this is going to be maple burl. I also have a little bit of box elder burl on the ends there, as well as here, and the rest is maple. The box elder I thought would look close enough since they're cousins, and the resin is going to be Alumilite deep pour. So I'm going to be using Wine Country Mica powders. I'll show you which later, and let's jump right in. All right, one of the first things I wanted to talk about before I get into the resin and the powders I'm choosing is the mold. So definitely not the prettiest mold I made, but should be super leak proof and really easy when it comes to demolding from the mold material itself. So moving on to the resin and the colors I'm going with. So I'm using Alumilite's Amazing Deep Pour. This resin is supposedly going to be awesome for a project like this because you can pour several inches thick of it all in one pour, and then it takes around 24 to 48 hours, or the max 72 hours, which we can see right there. And then the colors I'm gonna go with is gonna primarily be Wine Country Mica Powder's Black Pearl. And then I'm going to use a little bit of the color shift, the macro color shifts, just kind of as an accent. So the main color of this is gonna be semi-opaque, but also mostly translucent black pearl with a little bit of sparkle from the color shift if you get really close up, but from far away, it should look mostly black. So Alumilite was kind enough to send this resin out to me. First time using it, so I'm really excited. Should be really straightforward in the sense that it's 2 parts A to 1 part B. So they sent me two of these kits. I have another one in that box over there. I'm going to mix all of this up in a bucket, which we'll get to in a moment, and I'll probably need some of the other, we'll see, but I'm first just gonna do one at a time, see how much that fills up, and then go from there. So let's get mixing. So one of the things that was really nice about working with this resin was it's not as thick as some of the deep pour epoxies I've worked with in the past. The primary type of resin I use, for anybody who's familiar with the channel, is Alumilite Clear, which is a polyurethane, and its viscosity is really thin. It's super easy to mix, like even with a popsicle stick. But in my experience in the past using some other epoxies, they're a lot thicker. It really doesn't matter that much, especially when you're doing something like this and you can use a power drill like I am right there. But nonetheless, it does make it a lot easier of an experience. You're able to mix it a lot quicker, which is nice. And we can start to see with the Black Pearl and the Color Shift macro powders as well. You can really see some of the accents of the Color Shift and of course the base of the Black Pearl really come to life. One of the things that you might have saw me do for a brief second was dip a cup in, and what I'm doing right there is actually checking the color of it in the thickness that I know the table is going to be. And now it is on to pouring it. As I'm sure you'll see over the next several minutes of me doing all the different resin pours for this project, I had a tough time calculating the actual volume, and it was really just a miscalculation on my part. I thought that the wood was going to take up a lot more volume than it actually did, but not a big deal, as you all will see shortly after this. I do end up using the rest of the resin that Alumilite originally sent out to me for the project, and then I actually have to go order some more. So What you didn't see in that first one was me mixing up the rest of it and pouring it again. This is now when about a week or so later, when more Alumilite deep pour arrived. So I scuffed all of the surface up with sandpaper so I could get more surface area and a better adhesion. And I wasn't exactly sure if I was going to need all of the 3 gallons that I ordered more of. So I started off just mixing 1.5 gallons. And pretty much as soon as I started pouring this, I realized it wasn't going to be enough either. And so I needed to use all of the 3 gallons that I ordered. So in total, this table used about 9 gallons, which is quite a bit of resin. And again, should have been not an issue if I calculated the volume correctly from the beginning. I don't know how I messed it up so bad. I think I just simply didn't look at the wood. But you can start to see there the color shift specks, which this is a really good shot because it's hard to capture it in video, but with the light shining, I was able to get it. And now you can see me starting to demold the table. Actually came apart pretty easy. I just, of course, didn't want to absolutely destroy all of the tables and everything around me. I didn't want to send some of those flying. And here is as soon as I took it out of the mold and was checking out how it all looked, and it's definitely nice and thick. So really happy with the thickness there. So the way that I had to flatten this, because I don't have access to a large CNC or a really large planer or belt sander or anything like that some folks do, is to use this router sled that I made actually about a couple years ago now for my first Resin River project, which was a coffee table. So when I originally built this sled, I built it 4 feet by 4 feet, which was more than plenty for that coffee table. And for this, it's totally fine on the width, but what I had to do was kind of move it around. Once I would do one of the ends, then I would have to shim it over to the other side. So the hardest part about flattening this table was getting this burl cap down to the point of being able to use the router table on it. My first idea was to do what I'm doing right now, which is using a reciprocating saw, but I just couldn't get it low enough. And then so I had to whip out the chainsaw, and this maple burl was so dang hard, I basically had to cut sideways a little bit, and then because the chainsaw would start to bog down a little bit when it was starting to get a little trapped in there, I'd take it out and then cut vertically and then go back to horizontally, so on and so forth. And I finally was able to get it down enough, and I could then go over it with the router at a higher level and then put it back to the previous level I was at with the shims and take it down to the same exact level as the rest of the passes I had been doing previously. That I wish I could have cut that piece of burl on my bandsaw so I could have saved a lot of the top to reuse for other casting projects. At least the first pass I did with the reciprocating saw, I was able to save that part. But anyway, one of the mistakes I made filming right here was I was doing a really, really long time lapse with the belt sander and then the subsequent orbital sander passes, getting rid of all of the scratches left by the belt sander. But I accidentally did not have the time lapse going for the first one, mainly because you might have saw some sparks fly on the belt sander. I was basically needed to tweak something, so I stopped the recording and then of course forgot to start it again. So now you can see me using kind of a makeshift track saw setup, which is basically just you know, clamping a piece of a straight edge, in my case, the melamine scrap, and then using the, you know, that as a guide. And then, as I said, I also messed up on filming the time lapse of the orbital sanding, but basically just spent a ton of time on 80 to 100 grit, getting rid of all of the major scratches that were left by the belt sander. I still missed some, which, you know, for me, myself, when I'm looking at it closely, I can sometimes pick them out, but not a big deal. And then so I spent a lot of time filling up some of the voids with some more of the deep pour so that I could fill up mainly the big ones. I didn't really care too much about the small ones since this desk is for me. But the biggest kind of aspect that I'm not too happy with this desk, it's totally fine for myself, but are two things. One is the finish, which I'm starting to do right now, and I'll talk about in depth a little bit more in a second. But the other is, which you're probably seeing now, is the top and the bottom, or, you know, the left and the right of the table, which is where part of the bowed box elder burl was not completely showing. And the reason why I left it that way is because, since it's a table or a desk for me, I didn't really care too much about it, because if I had to, I would have to take everything down about another 1/4 of an inch. And I really didn't want to do that just to expose those two parts. And I can very easily cover them with stuff when they're on the desk. One of the things I may do eventually when I refinish this, which I probably am going to do at some point, is maybe take a really small router bit and just trace the part that is covered by resin still, and then re-pour some clear resin over it. I'm not sure if I would want to do that, but it is something I have considered doing. But the finish that I went with was wipe on poly, and it looks really good, especially on the wood parts, but what was hard to get perfect and glossy was the resin portion. I actually was planning originally on doing a epoxy finish and just kind of doing a flood coat, and I think that is something in, you know, a year or two I'm probably gonna take this off of its base and refinish it with that, because I like the matte look that it has, which you'll see in a bit when it's all completed, but I personally like the glossy look a little bit more. And so anyway, that, and then also the parts of wood that should have been exposed are the only two parts I don't necessarily love about this. But when I have everything set up for this to be used as my desk, they're covered. And the standing desk aspect of it is something I absolutely love. I use it every single day during my day job when I'm working. It surprisingly keeps me a lot more alert and energized than I expected. And as you guys can kind of see on the left and the right, I covered those blemishes a little bit anyway. So I really love this project. Definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I really enjoyed making this project for you all, and hope you all enjoyed the video. So like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel if you're new and would like to stick around, and again, let me know what you all think. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.